What is up, my friends, and welcome to the UFL Week In Review, one of the longest-running UFL podcasts. I'm your host, Mark Perry, bringing you the fourth episode of our show with just 71 days left until the UFL kickoff on March 30th. In today's episode, we'll dive deep into the UFL Dispersal Draft 2024, highlighting all the key players picked by each team. Then we'll discuss the recent shift in USFL, XFL players going to the Canadian Football League following the draft. Plus, we've got big news about where teams are being located, practicing, and don't miss our notes section where we'll touch on the latest player moves and league updates and so much more. I got back from my Disney vacation. I'm all ready, so let's buckle up and bring you the hottest news and insights from the world of the UFL.
USFL is in business. The XFL is underway.
There's no doubt spring just got stronger.
All right, we had the UFL Dispersal Draft. We have the full list of players that were selected by teams. We have a full breakdown on UFL News Hub. All of our writers are taking an in-depth look at each of the players picked, so you want to check out that if you want to get that more detail. But here's just kind of a top level. Arlington Renegades took 5 players. Calvin Jackson, wide receiver. Juan Mango, Jared Scott, tight end. No really Nasir Greer. So 5 players from the Arlington Renegades. Birmingham Stallions, notables to me, Bo Scarborough, running back, but taken late in the draft. Jalen Morton, also a quarterback. Myron Mitchell, wide receiver, just to name a few. They took 11 players. DC Defenders took 10. TJ Barnes, who was supposed to be retired, is coming back. CJ Johnson is a guy that you might want to look at. And Jalen McClendon, the Vipers quarterback that had a pretty decent season towards the end of the season. He is also on the team. Chris Rowland, who played for the Philadelphia Stars, he is also made there too, as well as Enrique Yene Romo, an outsider to potentially make it as a kicker because he can punt and he can kick, do kickoffs and stuff. So there's a couple kickers on the roster as well. And Tyvius Taylor, a running back, maybe he can have an impact as well on the running game. Of course, and a couple offensive tackles as well. On the Houston Roughnecks side, Luis Aguilar, a kicker and punter. Ezra Gray, running back. Those were some names out there as well. Aguilar had a good season for the USFL. Memphis Showboats took 14 guys. Long snapper, Matt Colin, kicker. Will Likely, cornerback. We've heard his name backs out there as well. And Damon Willis, wide receiver, to name a few. Michigan Panthers took 6 players. Nate Brooks, cornerback, another punter. They also took Kyle Kramer and Cole Murphy. That name rings a bell as far as kickers as well. San Antonio Brahmas, Landon Akers, wide receiver. Katie Cannon, wide receiver, played for the DC Defenders and then bounced around. Quentin Dormandy, that's right, the Quentin Dormandy show now moves to San Antonio, Texas with the Brahmas from the Orlando Guardians. AJ Hendy, free safety as well. Those are two kind of the Dormandy and Jalen McClendon are the two biggest quarterback names out there. St. Louis Battlehawks to wrap everything up. Drayvon Askew Henry, a safety. We've heard his name out there as well. Khalil McKenzie, also offensive guard as well. So those are kind of the big names out there that were part of this dispersal draft. So we are down to now, that was the January 15th. Now we're basically on till February 14th to fill out the rosters of 75 players. And then we go into training camp about 10 days later. And then we'll get it down to 42-man roster. So there is the USFL Dispersal Draft for 2024. Now we have several more USFL and XFL players are heading north after this draft. Our main man, Pat Ruffino, has got it. So QB James Morgan joins the Montreal Alouettes after going unselected in the dispersal draft. Went 23 of 48 attempts, 210 yards for the Pittsburgh Maulers in 2023. He is out. Eric Berry is out, and Steven Montez all elected to join the CFL over the past 2 days after Monday's draft. Of course, Morgan spent time with the Maulers. We all know about Steven Montez with the Seattle Sea Dragons and Eric Berry as well. Berry joined the USFL in 2022 with the Michigan Panthers, appearing in 2 games He was waived and claimed, kind of bounced around. He will head to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Will batter his USFL teammate Dakota Prukup for the number 2 spot. Winnipeg recently traded Drew Browns to Ottawa, allowing for the opportunity for Barry to complete. So congratulations to him. Steven Montez was the number 2 guy in Seattle Sea Dragons. Spent part of with the Washington football team and Detroit Lions, and now he's with the Elks with the Canadian native Trey Ford and McLeod Bethel Thompson. We know former New Orleans Breakers guy. So he goes there. Offensive players. DeAndre Torrey was the first player this week to be announced to go up north. Spent time with the Michigan Panthers and Eagles. He was with the Vegas Vipers. He was a kick returner. So he is now moved up, now heads to the Toronto Argonauts. Offensive linemen Jakir Baker and Brendan Bordner, both tackles, have also headed up north with the Montreal Alouettes and Hamilton Tiger Cats. They were with the Guardians and Roughnecks, not appearing in a ton of games. Defensive players Daniel Joseph of the Seattle Sea Dragons, Trayvon Mason of the Houston Roughnecks signed contracts with the BC Lion and Elks. Mason started all 10 games with the Roughnecks, while Joseph was a reserve defensive lineman for Seattle. Bounced around a little bit there. CFL also snagged 3 defensive backs. Jalen Green, who signed with the Houston Gamblers but never appeared in a game, now heads up north, joining Montez with the Elks. Former FCS standout Shabiri Davis joins the Hamilton Ticats after appearing 1 game for the Sea Dragons. And while DC Defenders signee joins the Calgary Stampeders for 2020, Bentley Sanders as well makes it there. So this was helpful for the Canadian Football League certainly kind of benefited from going from 16 teams to 8 teams. And these guys that haven't gotten picked up are going to make their way to the Canadian Football League, see how they do there. Again, that transition is kind of tough, though. We've got some great players from XFL 2020 still up there playing well. Dietrich Nichols comes to mind, and Sean Oakman, just to name a few. And, that's still, I would say the spring football scene is still unstable here in the United States. And we're really going to have to wait until after this season to really see how things shake out. I mean, you looked at the UFL website, there's not much to it. And it seems like everything is bare bones and get through the season and see how things turn out. So we'll keep an eye on more. I would assume more players are heading up north to the Canadian Football League, the CFL. So the UFL expands. Well, not exactly. Into North Texas. So there's the new home for the San Antonio Brahmas and Michigan Panthers. So the UFL leased large office space in Bedford, Texas for the San Antonio Brahmas and Michigan Panthers. The team will utilize, of course, the hub model in Arlington with training facilities and playing their home markets. We all know they merged XFL and USFL, decided to go with the XFL's league model, which is playing their home games but having a centralized location. The UFL presence is expected to bring vitality to the 3301 Airport Freeway building. So that's right. So Dallas Business Journal had the scoop about basically how the teams from Skywalker Properties Partners have secured the Brahmas and Panthers. They will have this kind of building where they will lease. There'll be space for them. Will serve as the operational base for the 2 teams, for the San Antonio Brahmas and Michigan Panthers. So remember, these teams got matched up. They did this as well, where they kind of had 2 teams kind of together at each location. So this is the location that they're going to share on Airport Freeway. Of course, we know about the hub model. There was a statement out there that we are in the process of exploring office spaces within the DFW area to serve as offices for our teams, a UFL representative said. It's a 96,556 square foot building, which is now 86% leased and underwent renovations in 2022. The landlord believes the UFL's presence will bring a new energy to the building, anticipating a long-lasting relationship with the league. That would be great. Also, the San Antonio and Michigan Panthers will conduct their practice sessions at Pennington Field in Bedford. So hence why the location is. We have pictures here on UFL News Hub, but that's where they'll be playing. So credit to the Dallas Business Journal for that information. So we should be hearing about other teams that will pair up together and practice together and share locations. Now that we've gotten leasing office spaces, like everything's a go, and we'll see if things are kind of building up. But at least we now know kind of where two of the 8 teams will be practicing and where their homes will be for the UFL season in 2024. Are you a fan of the XFL, USFL, and CFL football? Get ready to embrace your inner general manager with NewsHubFantasy.com's fantasy football experience. NewsHubFantasy.com offers you an unparalleled fantasy football platform bringing together fans of the XFL, USFL, and CFL football leagues. Compete in season-long fantasy with leagues up to 6 players. You can create your own for friends, or you can join an existing league. Draft your ideal team with our 7 active roster spots, including a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, flex, tight end, kicker, plus 3 bench spots. Show off your football knowledge and strategy and dominate your league. Our user-friendly interface makes it easy to manage with your team and get the latest news in your XFL or USFL or CFL leagues on the go. Plus, News Hub Fantasy offers mock drafts, pick'em games, and so much more all season long. So don't miss out on the action. Sign up now at newshubfantasy.com and become the ultimate football fantasy manager. All right, we're back with our quick hitting news and notes section. Anthony Becht talked about A.J. McCarron's status. Of course, the rules that we've already kind of went over here, that they're just awaiting his decision. He talked to Spectrum News this past week, basically saying they're eagerly awaiting his decision. Of course, they talked about the impact that he had on the team. But right now, the original goal, he said, was for AJ to talk to him for about an opportunity to let him know this could be given a nice platform. We checked all the boxes for him. It was a great year. A good team achieved all his goals. Everyone on the roster is trying to do that. His performance, of course, leading the league passing and touchdowns. So whether or not, I guess, what the Cincinnati Bengals are just going to decide to do with AJ, and if he returns, if he returns to the St. Louis Battlehawks, that will be huge. I mean, you got Jacob Pearson, Blake Jackson are on there. They've added some weapons to their team. They look to be really good. Beck says he's really excited about the end of February. Talks about the gameplay update, talking about the kickoff and the playoff rules changing. We know he's spoken about this before. And, of course, as always, he's looking forward to training camp. The question is, he's comfortable with the guys he's got in the room. But, man, if A.J. McCarron can come back to the St. Louis Battlehawks, I think would be a huge thing for that team, and they would be raring to go. Other guys making an impact, John Lovett is now with the San Antonio Brahmas. This is from James Larson. He's got that the Brahmas have signed their first free agent, acquiring the former Vegas Vipers running back, totaling 496 yards and 5 touchdowns. He had a brief stint with the Steelers. And now he is with the Brahmas. They're really amping up, I think, their backfield. In their team. Birmingham Stallions bring in wide receiver Slade Bolden back to Bama. Might know him. Bolden spent his entire 4-year college career in Alabama from 2018 to 2021. Opted to declare for the 2022 draft after a solid junior year, foregoing his eligibility. He was redshirted, 68 receptions, 712 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Held him back from much more NFL interest. Had he stayed, probably should have stayed. Despite this performance, he had a good dash. He was signed by the Baltimore Ravens. After signing with the Ravens, making the roster, he got injured, placed on IR, was released with an injury settlement from October. He was left on the open market and considered the USFL and XFL at that point, but opted to wait. This time was in Atlanta, gave him a chance to compete for a roster spot. He stuck around with the final cuts, sat on the NFL preseason game. But now he's going to try with the Stallions. Didn't look like much happened for him there. So this could be an interesting Slade Bolden is back in Alabama. Darius Shepard returns to the Battlehawks on the first day of free agency. That was a big news. Again, man, the Battlehawks are ready to rock and roll. The question is whether or not they're going to have A.J. McCarron as their he was the special teams player of the year. He was tryout with the Detroit Lions. He had a great season, and so he is now back in St. Louis. Former Cardinals first-round pick Robert Nkemdiche joins the DC Defenders. Now, he was a former first-round pick. He was with the Cardinals and a couple other teams. The DC has yet to announce, I think, his signing just yet, but he was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in 2016, spends 3 seasons with them, waived in 2019, played for the Dolphins, Seahawks, 49ers. He was kind of sort of in the USFL, like very briefly, but then transitioned, played in an indoor football league, which we'll be covering here on UFL News Hub, and then now makes his return there. So, I mean, DC's team defense, which was kind of what kind of hurt them maybe a little bit in the championship game. It seems like they went all in on the defense there for the DC Defenders. So, I mean, they just stacked their team with defensive tackles and out pass rushers. So we'll see how DC Defenders should be a good team. And also, congratulations to Renegades offensive coordinator Jonathan Hayes. He joins Moeller High as their athletic director. So, of course, he led the team with the XFL championship in 2023. He's been appointed the athletic director starting January 29th. So there's no confirmation if he will return as the offensive coordinator for the champion Arlington Renegades. And remember, they're kind of, they have been in the new playoff rules. They wouldn't have made the playoffs. But they wound up winning the championship. And there was some question about him in the beginning of the season. They just kind of struggled, but then they kind of turned it on. So now whether or not he stays with the team, I would assume not, because some of the guys get long-term, bigger contracts if they're offensive coordinators, but he decided to join Moeller High as their athletic director. So congratulations to him there. All right, my friends. Well, that's it for this week's show. I got back from Disney on Wednesday, early morning Wednesday, so it's been playing catch up. That's why the show is late. Of course, I'm going to be in Disney after the first weekend of the UFL season at the end of March. But hey, what can I say? We kept track of everything going on. Make sure if you want to be part of the show, podcast at UFLnewshub.com. We are cranking out a bunch of stories and building our team up. Super excited about that as we get towards the season. You can also leave us a voice message, 888-430-7692, extension 3, if you'd like to just drop us a line. But we'll be doing a power ranking. Give us your power rankings. Shoot us a line. And who are your top teams now that ostensibly the main rosters are out? There's going to be signings, though, over the next couple weeks, especially as NFL teams kind of release their rosters and players become available. I know some of the UFL team general managers are kind of waiting, keeping some roster spots open to potentially land some NFL guys who have recently been cut. So we'll just have to kind of stay tuned for that. But exciting things are coming. We have the fantasy football app. I have the app. I just cannot. Apple's being very persnickety about trying to get this phone app. It is looking good. It's ready to go. I keep submitting it. They keep telling me other things are wrong with it. So hopefully I can kind of knock that out next week. That would be a very good thing. And so question of the week, based on the now current rosters, how would you rank the teams? I'll have you. What's your personal power ranking right now based on the teams that are out there? So we'd love to hear from you. Email podcast at UFL News Hub or 888-430-7692, extension 3 as well. All right, my friends, that is it for me, folks. As always, God bless, and I will see you all later.